Hey, I'm Mike Sheridan and you're very welcome to The Delve. Fionnula McHale is a medical doctor with a speciality in proactive health. She's also a two-time World Powerlifting Champion and a 2015 World Fitness Champion. Her next challenge is the insanely tough Super League Live, which takes place in Las Vegas in mid-September. Dr. Fionnula McHale, thank you so much for coming in again. And anybody who's, I suppose, new to the channel or new to The Delve, previously it was a show, and I've mentioned it before, it was a show called The Manual. And you're actually way down. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not listening to it, you were actually a few videos back. You were one of the first guests I had on The Manual. And you were great.
Thank you.
I was saying at the time, I used to see you at the gym and I'd be like looking for tips and stuff that you were doing.
Mad stuff.
Going, how do I do that? And I've said this to you before, you're one of the most impressive people I know.
Well, thank you.
But obviously you're a doctor as well. We want to get into that too. But you had a background in swimming before you went into powerlifting. What were the powerlifting, I suppose, accolades that you got first of all?
Well, I suppose at the start, powerlifting, there wasn't many females doing it. So when I did the Irish Powerlifting Championships, which was my first competition, I won all of the lifts in that and got a few records. Can't remember offhand what they were.
Just like dropping records off the shoulder, yeah.
Well, like I said, in hindsight, there wasn't that many females who'd ever, especially in Ireland. So I don't think the records were in any way, massive or anything to write home about. But I suppose at the time they were big. Yeah. And they were big for me as well, getting into weight training. I don't think I'd been training that long, maybe 2 years, not even. And then I qualified from there to the Europeans, which I won. And then I went to the Worlds that year. I got second, which I still never have gotten over, let's be honest. Then the next year I actually got an injury at that time. So a major kind of disc injury in the back, but I still really wanted, like I said, I didn't get over the seconds in the Worlds. So obviously I kept plowing ahead, and I did the Euros then the next year to qualify for the Worlds, because it was obviously November to November. And
so you have to do the Euros to qualify.
Yeah. So I did win that now, but then
you're just like, I did win. I won that.
I know, but that's obviously I wasn't able to do then the Worlds because the injury was too severe at the time. So.
But you were competitive. You were a competitive swimmer before all of that. Was that while you were in college, or was that while you were?
Oh, that's since I'm a kid. I probably started swimming when I was 4, and competitively, I'd say from the community games. Very competitive, obviously, over the years, and like I said, that's how I suppose got into weight training. Really, was because I'd done competitive swimming, and like I said before, the swimming training for anyone who's done it before is incredibly intense. Yeah. And there's high frequency, and it becomes your lifestyle as well. As a kid, you could be training 3 times a day between sessions in the morning, sessions in the evening, and then often a land session as you get older. So even looking back, I was like, that was my I loved it.
What level did you get to in the swimming?
National. Now, as I got older, I did qualify for the international things, but I just didn't pursue it, I guess because of education and in hindsight, I suppose, some issues that maybe were going on behind the scenes. In terms of my health. And so, I had to make that decision to leave swimming and focus on the studies, and that was the hardest thing at the time, but I knew it had to be done.
There's kind of an insane, I think, dedication with somebody that you look at somebody and go, oh, somebody's a doctor. Kind of initially it's impressive. You go, the amount of work it takes that goes into that, the amount of study and everything that you have to do to lead up to just becoming a doctor and getting your degrees or wherever else it is. Add on to that your competitive nature. So how do those two things go hand in hand?
Well, I suppose the competitive nature is something that I've had to reflect back on recently. Because again, if like I say to people, what are you searching for with a competition? And in hindsight, again, looking back, and obviously this will be slightly different to the one we did before because it can look back with a slightly more level head. Obviously, it was great to have that competitive nature, and what I would have because I had, let's say, issues going on at home situation. For me, that was therapeutic. So for me to have the discipline, even when I did with swimming, that was my escape from the chaos that was going on at home, you know. And when I was in the pool, like I was literally looking out for pain, you know. If I didn't get out of the session, if I didn't have pain after the session, like that was a waste of my time, you know. And I loved it, like, you know, and then I suppose you carried it on to the studies, and I applied the same discipline there. So I remember when I made that decision in 5th year, to here, listen, I really want, I need to get these points to get into medicine, and you know, seeing what was going on around me, I knew that there wasn't going to happen if I was doing the same amount of swimming. So I knew that I needed to put the focus in there. So literally, what I did was I studied the whole summer of 5th year, but prior to the Leaving Cert year, and then during Leaving Cert of 5 hours every single night, like, and I had the discipline, I loved it. Like, I even look back and I love that routine and the discipline and the structure and the timetable, and also I suppose the nature of study as well, whereby, you know, there's the ultimate goal in Leaving Cert is to get the points and to do an exam. So I didn't want to get 90% or just an A, I want to get 100%. So if I wasn't getting 100%, then I was not happy. And so by the end of all the study that I put in for that Leaving Cert, like, I was going into that exam, and that was the best feeling, I'll never forget it, knowing that there was absolutely nothing in the world I wasn't going to know. Because these are the books, this is the study material, and I done it all. And I done every past paper back to 1991. So I knew there was, now, there were things that came up, admittedly, but, you know, aside from English, because English is not quite as black and white, let's say, as the science or maths.
There's a creative element to it, yeah.
But I loved that, you know, and I still do. Like,
yeah.
I suppose recently I've gone back to kind of applying that same discipline to the studies, which actually I realise is, for me, more therapeutic sometimes than even the training.
Yeah, is it the dedication? It's like it's almost like a distraction. It's something that you can throw yourself into.
Like, I've always had the ability to just sit there for 5 hours and read. You know, if I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
Now, that is the key.
That's a good
That is the key, because, like, I can't sit down and watch TV. Like, you know, I'm like, oh, I'd be bored after 5 minutes. Like, movies, I just, you know. Or, like, even if it's a normal, like, sometimes reading things, like, I wouldn't have the attention span. It's not that I don't have the attention span, but I just don't apply it in that way. Whereas, let's say even...
I think you have the attention span, given from what you've been saying.
I do, but not for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, I could, like, but even with science stuff, like, sometimes if it's, let's say, a book that's written for general public, I'd be like, okay, I'm bored of reading this. Like, you know, and it's great information. It's not that the material is boring, but, like, if you give me something that, let's say, is a research paper with the molecular stuff and all these mechanisms, I'll be sitting there for 10 hours, and I will love that. Like, and I would be completely oblivious to everything else going on around the world. Like, I could be lost in that for 10 hours, and I love that.
Is that what happened then in medical school? Did you just kind of become immersed in what you were studying
for those years? Well, no, actually, because that's where it became the problem. So what happened in medical school was, so I couldn't actually, because of the volume of stuff that was in the material for first year, second year in particular, I couldn't learn everything. You know, this simply wasn't possible to do that with the amount of time. And, you know, there's other issues. You're moving away from home, and, you know, the social life comes in. And you're pulled that direction. Fun. Especially for someone who would be quite rigid and didn't really have much of those things growing up. So in the first 2 years, it was okay, because I did like the molecular stuff, the biochemistry, physiology. There was a somewhat interest there. But then after the first few years, I did not enjoy it. I didn't have any, not that I didn't have any interest, but it just, the way clinical medicine was, it just wasn't something that I had let's say, I could apply myself to, because for two reasons. One, my background in science, I found it very difficult to understand that approach. You know, the person has X symptoms, so they fit in this diagnosis, and as such, we go to this box and we give them this medication, and if that doesn't work, you just try number 2 on the list. It's like, okay, like, you know, if I think...
Did you find it quite boring?
It wasn't boring. Like, it's not... I wouldn't say that it's boring.
It just didn't excite you?
Well, for me, you know, it didn't make sense to me. Because how can I sit there and learn all about Krebs cycling, glycolysis, and all of these intermediate pathways that go on in one cell of the body, and then you're telling me that it's this straightforward in a human being, and it's the same for every human being? And we look at genetics, and we look at all these... I think this is not making sense. And it became a real problem for me when I became unwell myself.
Yeah.
And the approach, like, and then I was going to the GPs, and they're applying that approach. Like, this is not this is just not working. It wasn't working, obviously, for me. And as such, that's when I went into the functional medicine side of things, because I was sitting here with a pile of tablets, you know, the sleeping pill for this, and the contraceptive pill for this, and all of these things. What the hell? You know, no more than, like, sometimes people take a load of supplements, you're like, you know what?
You need to know what they do.
Yeah, but it wasn't even that. It was the case of like, these are all symptoms of, but what's causing my, and like, what am I going to need to keep increasing the dose, or what's going to happen?
Is this like, is it one of those, is this going to be forever? Am I going to have to keep increasing the dose?
And is anyone going to ask here what's the source of the problem? And okay, I have pain in my tummy, so the answer is antidepressant. Okay, maybe in some sense they had a point, but I suppose at the time I did have a pain, and they weren't addressing that and saying that I was making that up.
So it's like more addressing the root cause of the problem.
And I suppose that's what I went into. So I went off as a good feck, I'll have to figure this one out for myself, because I couldn't function like in college, and you know, I could even training, I had no interest, and so. I went off and I did study and found functional medicine, and that was bliss. Like,
why was functional medicine bliss?
Because it was merging, I suppose, science with medicine.
Oh,
so again, my passion is you know, like, someone asked me recently, but you always had a passion for medicine, and I said I have a passion for helping people. You know, I like when I have a client that comes in and they get a message on Instagram and someone says, oh, like, you know, they're able to go out, or they made a picture and they had no interest in doing that before, or, you know, like that they never felt so good in their life. And that's what I have a passion for, and I use whatever tools I have to do that. Now, I found that the way that medical approach was at the time, and still is to an extent, a large extent, was not going to be able to do that for people. It was not going to be able to change their lives, because given a medication, A, the side effects, and 2, they're only dampening down a symptom without figuring out what the cause is. Now, granted, at the time that I started to research it, there wasn't a huge body of research to support it. However, clinically, when I was working with people, I was seeing the benefits of it. Now, the great thing is that now, at the moment, we do have a huge body of research. So,
that's something I see you sharing that research. I might get to the fitness stuff as well, but that's something I see you sharing that research and stuff on Instagram all the time, on your Instagram stories, because you've got over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And there's a lot of that's through the fitness stuff as well.
It is.
Yeah.
And actually, I've noticed that the followers have declined as there's less half-naked selfies on the things.
There's plenty of places where they can get those on Instagram,
yeah,
right?
I'm sure they can scroll down the feed.
yeah.
But since I keep my clothes on and show what I can do with my brain, it tends to be a little bit different. However, what I would say is that the feedback has been great, and it has allowed me to, again, revisit that passion for helping people, because, let's say, I would get a lot of messages privately that, you know, people do actually like that sort of stuff, and I didn't expect that at the time. You know, at the time,
people are probably going through similar things that you went through, and found some relatability in it as well. I mean, obviously you're a doctor, you're coming at it from a very scientific level, but you break it down sometimes as well.
Well, I hope that it's easy for people to understand, and the other point about it is to show that, you know, the research is there. Granted, it's in its early stages, but equally, if we look at, you know, the evidence-based medicine that we apply in another context, you know, let's say GP setting, the figures are, and they're never 100% for people either.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly an exact science either.
Everybody is different.
And and that's the other factor, is like the approach that I take is pertaining to the individual. It's not like, okay, so say we take depression, which is something I talk about a lot, and something obviously that I have a personal passion for, my own afflictions. But, you know, depression is very different in every different person, and how it manifests is different, and the causes of it are vastly different. And often there's multiple intervening factors, you know. And so to be able to help that person, different people are going to have different needs. You know, it might be a case of someone that's just a B vitamin deficiency, or, you know, a hormonal issue. And if it's biochemical, it's all very easy to solve. Someone might have a genetic polymorphism whereby they require different dosing of nutrients that they don't otherwise get from food. Someone else might just need a friend. Yeah. You know? So
it's treating a patient or speaking to a friend as opposed to treating the symptoms. Is that it?
Exactly. And, you know, is how you and that goes back to the thing that, you know, how you help. Like, as doctors, our goal is to help people, like, you know, and I'm sure there's plenty of other GPs and doctors that can relate to the fact that sometimes, especially when it comes to psychiatry, medicine doesn't help people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, look at the clinical efficacy of antidepressants, which again is the third leading, is one of the major causes of death, actually, when you look at the suicide rates. And WHO anticipates that it's going to get even higher, the prevalence of depression.
But that's something we've spoken about. I think that's coming out in Ireland in the past few years in particular, and that people seem to be a lot more open and talking about it as well, which is, like, it's a really positive thing to see.
It is. It really
if they're getting the treatment that they need, if they're speaking to people and that type of stuff.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you know, it's a chronic disease, and like I said, the
It's
efficacy.
not as simple as that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, like I say to people, it is a chronic relapsing remitting disorder no more than any other psychiatric issue. And it is such because there are so many intervening factors. It's like I said, sometimes we can address the biochemical side of things, but life can still throw shit at us. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and if you're prone to depression, then you can take a hit. Like, I say that myself, you know. Like, I said to you earlier, I have a freaking supplement store back in my house. And sometimes when shit hits the fan, I feel a bit sad. Like, fuck this. Like, I'm stopping all these supplements, you know. And of course, that's normal.
You wonder whether the supplements are working, and you're like, what do I spend?
Yeah,
all this
why
money
am I
on
still
this for?
sad? Like, but I suppose over you start to realise, you know, because, okay, for my own case anyways, like, for many years I didn't realise that I had depression, you know, I had no insight, despite my passion for psychiatry, which is very ironic. But I suppose, you know, then when you go to counselling and you go to treatment and they tell you have depression, then there's a tendency, and I will have gone through this myself, to be like, oh shit, like, I'm sad now, or I'm not getting better. You know, and recently, I suppose what I've started to see, and I see this with clients too, is there's a very fine line between feeling sad, or feeling stressed because of freaking situation. I say the bank account is empty. Like,
there's a reason for that. You can point to that reason and go, "This is why I'm pissed off."
And like what I also say, and I say to clients, is it's not about not feeling sad anymore. It's not about not feeling anxious or stressed, but it's about feeling like you're getting some sort of sense of yourself back, because that's what you lose. You lose yourself. Like, you know, I would even say that there's times that, you know, when I have been depressed, I'm like, who is this person inside me? Like, you know, I mean, you know, why this is not me. My thoughts are not mine. You know, I'm normally quite happy and bubbly, as you would know. But then sometimes you go home and then there's all these thoughts coming into your head. Like, what the hell is this? It's not me. I don't want to go to the gym. I just want to stay at home. What the hell is that?
Well, then you know there's something wrong, especially if you don't want to go to the gym.
And that's the thing, is being able to also identify those thoughts.
And the gym's obviously a massive outlet for you now.
Always has been.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'd be similar in some ways as well, because I remember the snowstorm a few months ago in Dublin. And we were both trying to find gyms that were open around the city, but it really is an outlet. And, like, I mean, I'd be quite claustrophobic as well, so I was stuck in my mum's for like 5 days. It happened to be in my mum's while the sun was on, and I couldn't train, and it was driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And you found that difficult as well. It is.
It's
that's your outlet, and your outlet's been taken away.
And that's because training has been my outlet for years and years and years. And you know, I suppose the context there, the snowstorm, I'm sure if anyone has followed me, they will be very familiar with my little outburst, which we won't go into
But
today.
I mean, I understood it.
But
I understood it.
And there's many people who will understand that. And you know, if you look at it like, for the average person, let's say, maybe they don't need exercise, but that could also be because they don't know how good you can feel from exercise. And also, like, there's many factors involved there in exercise. You know, like, if you look at the research as well on the benefits of training or, you know, physical activity, I actually saw a study recently, I think it was actually from the University of Limerick, but it showed that actually training with someone is far more beneficial from a mental health perspective. You know, so like I said, it's not just for me, anyways. Personally, like you know, I live alone. Well, with my dog, like, but you know, I don't really have like the same supports, let's say, as other people might have. So for me, going to the gym is not only for the training, but also the social, you know, like the environment that I have there too. Like, okay, I might not be best friends with everyone, but like, because I'm there frequently and they're there frequently, and they tend to be people who have the same mindset, it comes back to the same thing of like, you know, you feel a connection with people. And it's like, I've talked about this a lot, like, and with my clients too, they will talk about the same thing of loneliness. You know, and I say this a lot, like the quote I did a debate on, I don't know if you remember, but I always put it on the post. In an age of communication, mankind has never felt so alone. And like I said, it's not because people don't have people around them. You know, it's not that, you know, family's not there. It's not that they don't have friends as such, but people with which there is a connection that's, let's say, not based on because they went to the same school, not based on their socioeconomic status or, you know, things like that, but a real organic, connection.
You thought like the social media environment where people kind of know each other, but they don't really know each other. They know a version of each other.
It's not a real connection, you know, and that's, I suppose, a huge part of society at the moment, and that feature of loneliness can be one of the most destructive things.
So you could
in
have
life,
thousands of followers or thousands of friends on
and I say
Facebook,
that,
but
like,
it's that real human interaction obviously matters.
Like I
a
would
huge
say
amount.
that, like, you know, times when I've had more followers than I have now because of the half-naked selfies.
They're gone.
Those was the times when I was the loneliest I've ever felt in my life, you know, and people are saying, liking the photos, and there might be hundreds of likes, and, oh, Fionnula, you look amazing, and you're like, what the fuck, you know, I was like, I'm sitting here on my own, you know, and I feel like literally like very lonely.
Yeah.
And, you know, you often feel as well when you're in that space that you can't, you see, it's always the big antithesis of you don't want to be on your own, but then sometimes you can feel even lonelier when you go to a place whereby you don't connect with people. So, like, say if I was to, you know, and I use the classic example of medical school for me, I felt very lonely because I didn't have, I didn't have the same connection. The people maybe didn't have. Obviously, I was of a different socioeconomic background, and my interests were different, and I couldn't get my head around this type of medicine. Not that I couldn't get ahead, but it wasn't.
Yeah. So you might think, people are going to be of the similar mindset. Doctors, they're going to be dedicated, and it's going to be a similar mindset.
Yeah,
but it's obviously
it wasn't. No, I had close friends, even Francis, like. And Anne. So.
Like and subscribe, Francis and Anne. Like and subscribe.
Even Francis.
Yeah.
And you know that obviously those are friendships I still have, but and that's, I think, what people need to find nowadays is, you know, real organic chemistry that's, let's say, built on meeting people in person. Like, even I think we talked about the dating apps before.
Yeah.
You know, and the addictive nature of them, because on paper, you know, it's an algorithm or whatever that the technology makes up, and it says, okay, this person does this job and they have this interest, and so the technology fits you with the person, you know. But like, that's the whole point. You can't force a relationship on that, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship. You know, that connection is not something that technology.
It's difficult to tell if it's real until you meet the person and you see if that connection is there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I think if we look back, you know, friendships or relationships are based on meeting in person. Like, you know, and often I suppose the addictive nature I refer to is really when it comes to, you know, okay, this person sounds like my ideal man. You know, they're tall, dark, handsome, whatever, like, you know, and they do this for a living and whatever, they blah, blah, blah.
They seem to be ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, and so you're going to meet them, so it's like the biggest freaking come down you can ever get from, oh shit, they're not really, like, fuck, you know, or like I say this, you know, and then you go back. So what do? You go back to the app and you keep going looking for more. And the app gives you another person that you build up until you're getting up to this high, like, oh, okay, I'm going to get my high now. It's like sex, you know, you build up to an orgasm. If you don't get sex, it's like the worst thing in the world. So, like, you know, like, it's equated to the same thing, and the same people end up with sex addiction, you know, like, or they watch porn. Porn, again, another problem. So, like, you know, people are watching all this porn, and it becomes, they've actually done a lot of research on it, and, you know, it's all this exciting, different scenarios and different, especially for the male, like different people or different colour hair or whatever, different bodies. And then ultimately they go back to have actual real life sex. What they found is difficulty with men, you know, obtaining erection, sustaining erection, because their mind is so used to this mad stuff that they've been seeing on the television screen, that actually the real life sex then can become, you know, how would you say, it's almost like tachyphylaxis. Tachyphylaxis, I suppose, is the effect whereby, let's say, if you keep taking a drug, the receptors downregulate, so you don't get the same effects. Or like caffeine, if we take it all the time, we don't get the same buzz.
But I think it's one of those as well, is that, especially for the kind of younger generation coming up, like I'm 36 now, but that younger generation who grew up with the internet. You know, when they were kids, the internet was there. When I was like in my late teens, it was only really starting, that's how old I am, it was only really starting to get popular. So part of the issue is everything's so freely there if you want it, and it's really easy to be indulgent with kind of anything.
Yeah, but like I say, even Instagram nowadays is like a porn site. Like, I mean,
You're not a fan of the fitness influencers, the FitFam, and
I think I mean
I'm sure there's good and bad. Yeah.
Well, like that's the thing. It's like what you call fitness these days.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of the fitness people, like they don't do anything at all in the gym. You know, like what are like all I see is a picture of the big ass and leggings. Like, I mean, okay, great, you store your fat in the ass, that's brilliant, like, well done. What did you... Like,
that's genetic.
Yeah, that's what I say, you know, like, I don't want to obviously say the brand, but like, I'm sure if we work it out in timeline context, you can probably figure it out what I'm referring to. But there's a load of these fitness celebrities from the States over in the gym in Raw, and, you know, they in there, and... You know, even myself, you'd look at them like, oh, wow, they look amazing. And the girls are beautiful. They're beautiful girls. You know, they're lovely bodies. But, like, you know, you see them in the gym, like, what the hell? Like, they don't do anything. They're sitting on the phone. And the reality is that they're not... they're fitness models, so they look nice in the gym gear. But I suppose and that's fine, because they're there to market gym gear. But I suppose for people to follow them as role models in terms of their ability to exercise, their ability to, or their knowledge and nutrition is where the problem lies, because you can't follow someone's program or you aspire to what they do and they post up and they eat this and they eat that, because the way they look is not based on their knowledge of that or who their trainer is or anything. That's genetics, like, you know, like.
So if somebody at home is looking at, like some young girl's looking at home and she wants to get into fitness and she's looking at whatever fitness influence or whatever fitness model it is, like huge elements of that are going to be their genetic makeup. Unless they're doing exercises constantly and showing people the exercises that they're doing, or breaking down their diets, or breaking down kind of reps and sets and stuff that they're doing, that's not going to be a realistic shape to replicate.
Yeah, and I suppose the other thing I always try to say to any girls that I see as clients, and the guys at the moment as well, you know, the body image issue is nobody can look like another person. Like, you know, even I say this because I've been there. You know, like I said, obviously the last year for me has been working a lot on myself with the view to being able to live a slightly better life, more fulfilled life, because I wasn't happy. And, you know, as a female growing up, suffered with eating disorders over the time, as well as a whole pile of other things. But listen, at least I've been there, done that. So I suppose you always aspire, okay, I want to look like that. And for me, you know, the nature of the type of training I've done over the years is intense. And I love to train intense. And I, you know, as I got to lift weights, I like lifting heavy, and I like lifting hard, and I like lifting a lot of volume. I like that. And as such, I'm going to look a certain way, especially with the genetics I have. So, you know, I'm going to put on muscle very easily. If I train upper body, I'm going to have a big set of shoulders, like, you know, if I'm going to have a big biceps. So over the years, influences come in, and obviously, you know, you become unhappy in yourself, and you're like, okay, well, like, look, and people say things, you know, they don't mean it, like, but, you know, as it's like, you know, someone else said to me the other day that I think it was actually Dr. Eric Serrano, he's a big influence for me at the moment, but he commented that you can never tell a girl she's fat because she'll remember that for her whole life, and I would agree with them, you know.
Yeah.
Someone say, oh, she looks a bit masculine, and you remember that, especially with someone that you're close to, you know, or maybe she'd reduce a bit of size, like you're looking a bit butch or whatever. So those things stick, and
and you're saying you sometimes you can't help those things.
No, you can't.
Your genetics. That's what
And
you're
like,
saying.
yeah,
It's like,
so,
be careful what you say to people.
Yeah, well, there's that too, but also I suppose you, like, in hindsight, like, I've built a better shell for myself by virtue of addressing the issues that maybe were causing me to take on what people were saying so strongly. You know, equally, like, you know, I don't know if you remember this, but a few years ago when there was all this people on Instagram say nasty stuff about me, you know, that had a huge impact on me. Yeah. You know, I pretend like, oh yeah, I'm strong and nothing affects me, but at the time it did hugely. So
this is basically trolls. This
is
trolls.
Yeah. And like, you know, I'd love to sit here and say it didn't, but it did.
Well, of course it did, you're human.
Yeah, and so, you know, as a female then, you know, you want to look a certain way, especially, you know, with relationships. And so I had spent a lot of time then trying to lose all of this muscle, doing training that I didn't particularly enjoy. Like, you know, like, what the hell?
What was the training that you didn't enjoy?
So I would have been doing like more cardio. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't like cardio, but
Nobody likes cardio. Come
Well,
on.
actually, like, if you did it in the right way, quite therapeutic. And I go through cycles of enjoying it. The steady runs I do.
Oh, see, I did ultramarathons, so I'm like, that was literally all I did for years.
Yeah.
Just switch off and just kind of plow through.
Yeah, and like even as a form of exercise and therapy, there's different roles of it. Like, and I tend to go with what I feel. But in that context, I was doing stupid isolation with exercise. Don't get me wrong, there's no harm in that, but I would be afraid of training upper body, or I'd be going into the gym like, oh, I want to lift heavy, but I better not because like I'll get big, or I better get rid of my quads.
It was more you're worried about what kind of people would say, and that would you kind of spiral from that again.
Yeah, and like that's to say, I think there's a lot of people there now. So, and I suppose the point I'm making, again, a huge waffle as usual, like, is that when you can never look like someone else.
Yeah.
And what the important thing is for you to do what you enjoy on a daily basis. And again, I would have always said that a long time ago. I lost my way in the middle, but I'm back again. And so as such, what do you enjoy on a daily basis? Because the end result, whether it's to go on stage in a bodybuilding show, or whether it's to win a powerlifting competition, whatever it is, like, you have to enjoy the process. And I know that sounds cringe as hell, but it's true. Like, what do you wake up?
That's what you're going to be doing every day.
Yeah, so
you're not going to be on the stage all the time. That's the end goal.
And how you look on the stage is going to last 10 seconds, I'll tell you that much, because you're going to
dehydration and
all those things. But at the end of the day, it's like I go into the gym for the buzz of the hour that I'm there. Like, looking for that high that I get from the pain in the muscle, like, And granted, some days I'm not able, the thought of, oh shit, like, this is going to be hard, like, you're holding onto the seat, like, what is going
That's what caffeine is for.
Yes, caffeine too, but that's, that's where people need to find. And also diet, like, obviously there's sometimes medical reasons why people have to adhere to a certain diet, and that's fine, but equally, like, restrictive diets, unless you have a medical reason to do so, are probably not going to get you the results in the long term. And as
it's like calorie deficits and that type of stuff.
Well, like, if your goal is to lose weight, you're going to have to be calorie deficit. But like, being afraid of this food and that food, and like I said, if you don't have a medical reason, it's just to achieve balance. And like I said, I wouldn't have been the first person to be great at balance over the years. But I'm saying these, and like I said, I'm grateful for the experience that I've had over the past year, because it has made me, not even from my own perspective, but from my ability to help others, because I can see things a lot more clearly than I could before, in sense of I can see behaviours in certain people, and I can.
When you've experienced it, it's easier to spot it in somebody else and help them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and to be able to impart, like I said, a lot of the time I talk about things, in my past, and it's not to get sympathy for people. In fact, I hate people feeling sorry for me. But I suppose it's because I've seen the benefit of sharing a lot of those things, whereas someone else, like I said, come back to the loneliness thing as well. Like, someone else might be sitting there at home, and people have sent this to me in messages. I thought I was the only person that felt like that. And I think it comes back to, and I'm trying to look at doing this, let's say, in the same context, but not people that have used drugs. But like, if you look at like AA or NA model, why that is so successful is because you have a bunch of people there. Okay, they've used drugs, right? But why did they use the drugs in the first place? That's usually why people end up in addiction, is, what was it that drove them to drugs? And they try to get clean. Now, you can detox a drug from someone, but unless you address the reason for which they were doing so much drugs, obviously there's genetics at play too, there's the chemical aspect, but there's usually something else going on social that's a little bit more difficult to control. And a lot of it comes down to feeling a certain way. There's the loneliness they report, and feeling like they're the only one that feels like this.
Yeah.
And so the NA or AA model works because you bring these people together who by themselves, let's say, they feel very lonely, like, oh Jesus, the stuff that goes on in my head is mad, or the way I would think, I guess it's a thinking process, or, how they would address social situations, like they might need to have a drink to go into a social environment, or whatever it is.
That seems like a natural thing. It's like, I'll have some social lubricant here and have a drink before I go out and chat to people.
Exactly. And like, not everyone feels like that. Like, but what you have, and there's other things as well, like, let's say, family experience, childhood trauma, obviously, as well. And when you bring all these people together and they just talk openly and freely, and there's this shit, it's
not just me.
It's not just me that thinks like that. But also, what you also see as well is, okay, there's the chair, and the chair shares his or her story about how they fucked up, Okay, so I don't know if I'm allowed to curse.
You're allowed to grand.
You know, how they use all this, whatever they use, whatever their poison of choice was. And then someone else might be sitting there who, let's say they just got out of the detox centre and they're sitting there like, feck, I'm not going to be able to do this, like, you know. And then they see someone who, let's say, says all of the things that they're experiencing at the moment, like I felt like this and I was using this amount of stuff and I was homeless or whatever it is. And the other person sits there, and what do they get? They get such a huge sense of hope. Well, feck, if that person did it and they're 15 years clean and they're living a good life, it gives that person hope.
Like something to aspire to. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, you can get the drug out of the system, but it's what brings the relapse, you know, is huge in addiction. So what brings them back to that substance is often the feeling of loneliness and hopelessness and feeling like, feck, these cravings are never going to go away. You know, how am I expected to live a life like this without drugs is usually the case. And as such, you know, seeing other people getting clean and living a better life is very therapeutic for people. So that's the same principle that I would say to people, maybe, because actually, as I've started to talk more about, you know, how depressed I was and my other afflictions, you know, I've had a lot of people that say, Jesus, I would have thought you had everything. You know,
I was just going to say that.
How could you be depressed?
I was just going to say that, and like I've spoken to Prezi before, I've done podcasts with Prezi before, and it was a very similar thing.
Yeah.
And that people looked at him and went, oh my God, like he's so good looking, he's a rock star, he has all this stuff going on. But really nobody knows, and I think people would have thought similar things with you, winning literally winning global fitness competitions and having all the success and in your career and everything else. And, you know, people just wouldn't just be something that would occur to people, I think, at least on the surface level. And, you know, but that goes to show everybody has their
like
thing.
I'll never forget, actually, shortly before, let's say maybe I needed to go get treatment. Or shortly before, let's say, just to say the decline in my health.
Yeah.
You know, in the mental state, as like I said, you can cope sometimes up to a period of time, but eventually there's, let's say, a cataclysmic event that you need to sort things out. But I'll never forget, actually, my friend Michelle Pete, hi. She came in to me and I was doing a treatment, an IV, and she said, actually 2 people said that similar thing that day, that if they could bottle the happiness that comes out of me and sell it, they would make a fortune. And I just remember thinking, what the hell, like, you know, because I'm going home here and crying every night, like, you know, and I couldn't. I just remember feeling so lonely at that point because nobody knows, like, you know, and I don't know how to verbalize this, and that was the low point.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I won't cry.
No, but that's a difficult thing to know how to communicate when you're not used to communicating like that as well.
It's not even that. It's like not even having the insight to know, like, why do these people all think I'm so happy? Like, you know, and it's not, I would say it's not as if I was acting, like, you know, that would always be my demeanour, you know, like happy and friendly, but like you go home at night and it's a different story, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you would have got people going, I want to look like her and I want to be in the mood that she's in and the kind of happy mood that she's in, whereas you're kind of going, that's not how I feel. That's, you know, the
And
surface
that
level is something
discord
else. It's something else entirely.
Yeah, and like it becomes frustrating, and anyone else that suffers, let's say whether it's depression, anxiety, or anything else, will notice when people around you are like, you know, you have nothing to be depressed about, or, you know.
That's the worst thing you can say to somebody, isn't it?
Or
because
like,
they don't know.
Yeah, and it's not. It's like that's often the problem with depression is that like on paper I shouldn't be depressed, and I suppose that's for me was the issue, because I was like, well, like I want to win all these things, I put my mind to them and I win them, like, but I still feel empty, and like I didn't know, like obviously going to treatment, then the benefit of that was that I was able to find out, well, like, why am I feeling like this? And it was nothing to do with, you know, the usual things or things that on paper, but let's say for me anyways, personally, it was childhood issues that I'd never really addressed, a lot of which I didn't even remember. So, you know,
that's going to be traumatic for anybody.
That was tough, yeah. So that's obviously, especially when you revisit childhood as an adult, for me was very difficult, and that's something that I'm still, you know, working on. And like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. Like there's days where I still get flashbacks to things that are very unpleasant, but like I said, you can address the chemical end of things, which I am doing with Dr. Serrano, and that
is there a psychiatric element as well? Like, is there somebody that you speak to flesh these things out, or does that happen in a group setting?
And in a counselling session, the counselling, I suppose personally, you know, for other people, counselling is great, but also to bear in mind, and I suppose this becomes again, but how how I working with clients too. Sometimes counselling is not always beneficial to a person at the right time. So for me, you know, I was advised maybe not to revisit some issues. You know, like I said, some days I can talk about it, some days I can't. But especially some of the nature of abuse, which was sexual in nature as a child. At the time when I was kind of dealing with the flashbacks, it wasn't wise for me to be going into counselling setting and talking about those things when let's say I was coming out of the counselling session an hour, you know, and I had to go back to normal life here, like, you know, and I'm also home alone, you know.
Yeah.
So like I said, for a lot of the time you have to be very skilled at identifying when is the right time to revisit those issues, especially if they're major.
If you go down, like, it's almost a rabbit hole, it just, there's going to be a spiral, and there's not a huge amount you can do about it. So how do you deal with it? How do you?
Well, I suppose it's a matter of, like I said, getting the biochemistry right is always a start, you know.
So you really bring it back to the science. That's in your nature.
Actually, that's the problem a lot of the times with medicine, is that it's not just the science for depression. So, you know, no matter what I do with supplements or medication, and I did go on a period of medication for a period, you know, like I said, there's usually a combination of things that we need to use for depression. So an integrative approach is what applies best. For me, that was initially medication, supplements, addressing the food situation, exercise, and again the psychology element of things. But also what has been the most therapeutic thing for me is my little dog. And you know, they've actually done a lot of research around animal assisted therapy, and you know what, like that's the other thing. The connection to spirituality is something that I lost, and I don't know if I ever had it. But you know, I believe, like, for me, the day I got Junior, like, it was like so by chance that, you know, she happened. Like, I happened to let's say take her home. But
how did because I see Junior on your Instagram all the time. She's gorgeous.
She is beautiful.
She's
dapping up my eye.
How did it come about that you got Junior?
It was mad because it happened to be a day. I actually, you know, I've been talking about getting a dog for ages, like, but never really put any serious intent into it. I'm looking at pictures online and stuff, like, you know, but
everybody's looking at the cute dogs on Instagram,
so cute,
those
like,
pages
you know,
and
I was like, one day, you know, when the time is right, like, no more than people who want babies, wait for the time. But I happened to be a Saturday morning, and like I was probably going through a bit of a rough time back then, and happened to be a Saturday morning where I wasn't, you know, feeling very unwell, let's say. And so it was 9 o'clock. I saw this ad on Dundee, and I texted the guy. And it just so happened to be around the corner. And I said, feck it, I'll go and see the dog. I was like, I'm not going to get anyone. Like, I'm not going to get a dog. Well, I go look. I went into the house, you know, and it was, there was no other dogs there. They didn't speak any English. And I just saw this frightened little puppy, like tiny little thing, like you can see how small she is now, like is she a little puppy, like, and she was just shivering in the corner, like shivering. And I was just like, don't speak whatever language you speak in. And I was like, just give me the dog, like take my money and just give me the dog. You know, she just looked so frightened and scared, and like I couldn't leave her in that. Had you
been taken away from a man too soon?
Know, I didn't ask,
and they'd know it. Well, you couldn't communicate.
No,
with
and they didn't have much to say. But I don't think she was, let's say, treated in.
You just wanted to get her out there.
I just saw the fear in her little eyes, and it's like I said to people recently, you know, like I have trouble trying to train her, like, because I don't want to be cross at her. But like, it's like when I saw her little in the corner, it brought me back to me as a child. You know. Oh God, I'm gonna cry. You know, the fear that I would have felt. Often as a child, so I just had to take her, like, you know.
Yeah.
And like I said, even when I get cross at her now, and she's like, "Oh, I'm scared in the corner," like, you know, I still can't be mad at her because I'm like, fuck that, you know, I see myself as a child, like, I know that sounds bad, but anyway, so I took her home, and we went up and we filmed in the DSPCA a few months ago, and it's unbelievably heartbreaking, especially when you hear some of the stories too. And like, even she was like shaking for like months. Yeah. You know, like she could see she was anxious. I was going to say child.
Well, she is to you, and that's another thing as well. You see, people don't get that either. That to a lot of people, I mean, I totally get that. I've had a few dogs over the years, and my mum had one recently that we rescued from the DSPCA that she was allergic to. She turned out, like, after having them for like 6 to 8 weeks or something like that, and then the doctor literally said, "Look, you can develop asthma. You can then get pneumonia on the back of that." And all. I was like, I was like having none of it at all because I'm saving for my own place, so I literally couldn't take the dog, and then you feel helpless as well. But I mean, it means different things to different people, you know. But some people, it's obviously their children and their family. Other people get that kind of maternal instinct with animals.
She is, because like she's my like little family, like, you know, like
Yeah.
I said, I attribute my, you know, improvement in health to her being there, because I didn't really feel as lonely anymore because I have my little dog, like, you know, and like I said, I think it was probably, you know, her being anxious at the time was, you know, it was like I said to someone, I was like, she's the two of us are sitting here anxious and rest, like, you know.
You're getting to know each
But
other.
yeah, but you know, I was obviously going through a rough time, and she was obviously also going through a rough time, you know. Like I said, she's a dog, and you know, people would be like, oh, what's she talking about? But like, a dog has psychology too, and she was clearly very anxious, and she's improved, you know. So it was like we were both kind of helping each other. Like, I remember having a panic attack one of the days, like, and she just came up to me and she was like, she's like licking and licking,
Yeah.
licking, and it helped me come out of the panic attack at a time when I probably hadn't had them outside of a treatment centre ever. So it was a scary thing for me. But like,
I can only imagine. Yeah.
she was there, you know, and like I was able to come out of it. Like, so.
So
It's
that's
just-
different things for different people as well. Like for you, it's Junior. For somebody else, it could be, you know, a flatmate, it could be a roommate, it could be a cousin, it could be anybody. But somebody there just to kind of have that out, or for somebody to kind of show some form of empathy. And that's what the dog did. I mean, I had I had really bad sciatica years ago. It's obviously I'm not comparing them, but I was on my back for about 2 weeks.
Pain is pain.
Pain is pain, and it was pain, Jesus Christ. And I was on my back for a couple of weeks. And I remember I used to have to go down, living with my girlfriend at the time, and I'd have to come downstairs and lie on the floor because I couldn't move with spasm. And we had a dog who was a German Shepherd Lab cross, Burr, and she literally, I was on the floor, and Burr, and she was going to come over on the floor. I come over next to her on the floor, and you're like,
I remember you saying that.
yeah, but you don't realise how intelligent they are, how emotionally intelligent these animals. She knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
Probably because it was on the ground, like, "Ugh, everything is sore.
They know the right things to say, you know. They don't answer back.
Nothing. That's it. That's the right thing to say.
Exactly, and that's, you know, I suppose that comes back to, I suppose, even, you know, being able to look at other treatment mechanisms, whether it's depression or whether it's IBS, like, you know, it's to have an open mind to treatment interventions, that medicine is not just about giving a tablet or doing a surgery, you know.
Yeah.
There are other things to getting people well and get people well in the long term. And again, like, you have another lady, she has a rabbit, like, you know, and that's her child. But again, being able to have that open mind, and, you know, even
Well,
for me,
therapy
like,
animals are a real thing. Like, there's people take them into hospitals to cheer people up. Is it an endorphin
they do,
thing? How
actually,
does
yeah.
it?
Actually, there's a lot to do with oxytocin, which is a brain chemical. Let's say when we hug someone.
Yeah.
You know, the brain boosts oxytocin, and I suppose it's the sex hormone too. Like, you know, well, like, let's say if we have intercourse, like, you know.
Yeah.
So it's the same type of, I suppose, love that we feel towards someone, and, you know, like I said, there's a chemical, I suppose, link to having that affection with whether it's an animal or a human that, you know, is therapeutic for the brain, and essential, actually, you know. Like you say, even if we go to church, you know, if you're religious or not, like, I suppose I wouldn't necessarily be a religious person as such, but spiritual. And I do go to church, like, but, you know, sometimes going to church and feeling that connection with God is also something, or whatever. I say
People find that in spirituality. People find that connection, that comfort. Yeah.
And I say it's a comfort for me, anyways. Like I said, I'm relatively new to the spirituality. I'm no expert on it at all. Like, but I found it a comfort, especially at times when, you know, sometimes, especially with some of the things that have happened to me over the course of life, you know, you have a tendency to feel like, well, why does this shit always, like, you know, these things keep happening to me, like, you know, you start to feel a bit sorry for yourself, and, you know, especially when you're trying to do your best and those things keep fucking up. So I say that, well, you know, the situation that I end up in, God or sun, moon, stars, whatever you want to call it, put me in this situation deliberately, like, I'm here for a reason. And I feel that the stuff that I went through, let's say last year, I was God, or, like I said, spiritual person, or whoever put me on the planet wanted me to go through that, because by virtue of that experience and by virtue of going to that dark place, I am now able to sit here and be able to relate to other people and help other people by virtue of my experience.
Is that what it comes back to? You really want to help other people. That's something
I do, and like I said, that's my purpose. And, you know, you have to have a purpose at times when your mind is sometimes telling you that you don't.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me feel good. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, like, you know. And that's why I feel I've been able to get through what I did because it was not an easy thing to do. And it still isn't. There's every day I could go back to where I was, but I don't because, I know I've been supposed to be here to help other people.
Yeah.
And
but it's amazing to kind of know that that's your, not everybody kind of figures that out.
You don't always believe it sometimes. Like you said, it's not, there's days you question things. Like I said, some of this shit hits the fine, like, fuck this. Bullshit.
That life is throwing curveballs at you.
Off,
Well, I want to talk about as well about the Super Leagues. This is something that you've been doing. I was like, okay, what kind of insanely physically demanding thing is Fionnula doing next?
This is one of them.
This is the thing, because you won. What was the Fitness World Championship you won a part? This isn't the powerlifting.
International Fitness Championships.
So that was an actual fitness. That wasn't a physique thing. That was a
combination of physique and performance. So the performance round, it was all on the same day. So the physique is obviously you have to give a bodybuilding physique in the same day as which you do. It was body weight squats for 1 minute, chins, bench, deadlift. What else was there? Press, and that's all. And then actually, because there was at the end, there's always a surprise round for the top two. Or actually, it was top 3 in that day, and we had to do a Versa climber. So I was actually coming second, like.
Oh, that was in Vegas. When was that?
No, that was in the UK. That was in London.
All right, okay.
Yeah, but Super League is different, and I suppose it's much more global. So, it's a worldwide thing at the moment, and it's really is me, like, I freaking love it. Like, thank God someone got me involved in it. Like, it's freaking tough. It's the toughest thing I've ever.
But because it's like you're based on, it's like a leaderboard, and I see you posting a thing about the leaderboard.
You qualify, like you can do your qualifier remotely. So let's say I can record it in RAW where I'm training, and whatever you lift. So there's different. I suppose to break it down, there's different aspects of it. So. There's a power component, which is a 3 RM, so which means you do 3 reps for squat, bench, and deadlift in succession, obviously. So there's no rest in between the reps. But I prefer that, or I think it's better for someone who I don't have the youth of a non-injured body anymore. So I'm not putting myself on the same amount of burden, let's say, as I would, because I still obviously have a slight disc issue. So, to be going for 1 RM, I just not going to do that anymore. I have a bit more sense now in my old age. So the 3 RM is nice because you're not putting the same stress, and then there's what's called combine. It's torture. It's like I couldn't pick for a better event. So like it's squats for 1 minute, 1 minute rest, bench for a minute. I can't remember the order. Toes to bar, press, chins, deadlifts. Anyways.
And it's correlate with your body weight, is it? Or
now you can, and I have done. The other thing I like about it is you can adjust the weight. So like, my ability to do reps per minute would be quite good, especially in squat, bench, and dead. So I usually go over body weight, because then you're like, let's say there's a mathematical formula by which you get extra points. Yeah. So let's say for squat and dead, I would usually go a bit over, like I might go 1.5 times body weight. Whereas let's say chins, I wouldn't be great on. I'm working on them. And toes to bar, I can't do the kip. Like CrossFit. Like I haven't yet figured out the kip thing, and the same with the chins. I'm still doing strict, but actually I don't really want to risk injury by doing the kip. And if I just do extra weight,
they the chin ups that are like they're not really
So you can get more reps obviously per time.
That's when I get real judgmental in the gym, and I look at you like, they're not chin ups.
Yeah, me too. Except for when I can't do them.
That's all I can do. That's all I can do. So
well, I can do chins, but it's just like you're not going to get the same volume. So competitively, like I said. I've at some point, let's say, quenched the competitive desire to win at all costs.
Yeah.
And then my favorite event, or part of it, is blood. So blood is like a, I suppose, aptly named because it's more of a bodybuilding style session. So or workout or event, because what you're doing is you're doing the most weight that you could lift in 3 minutes for 24 reps, broke down to 3 sets. So it's like the pump, obviously you're going to get there is huge, because, I suppose I've broken it down. Personally, it suits me better to do 8-8-8. So let's say 8 reps, break 8 reps. I think I did one.
So anybody can do whatever.
You can pick which weight.
Once you meet that criteria.
Yeah, but it's the weight, obviously, that becomes a thing. And that's what I'm actually good at. So I'm good at lifting heavy for multiple reps, close to the 1 RM, where like, my 1 RM, let's say, might not be fantastic, but I can lift a huge volume of load huge volume of reps close to the load that's my max.
Yeah.
You know, based on body weight as well. So that's my favorite event, and it's the one that
Blood.
actually, yeah.
Good Lord.
So,
And this is the one that's in Vegas? This is the...
yeah, so the World War, which you qualified for, is in Vegas.
It's also aggressive.
Yeah, so the World War is effectively like the world championships of the Super League, let's say. So all the athletes who have qualified over the last number of months, you know, meet together to compete for the title of superhuman. So that's you know, I even like the language. Honestly, so me.
It just sounds like a ridiculous challenge. So you're like, I'm into it.
Yeah, so obviously there's 3 separate days. So like I said, the 3 events, the power is on the first day, from what I remember, combine the second day, and the final event is blood. Now I think blood is the decider on who gets the title of superhuman, which obviously I want to get.
Yeah.
You know, now is a great thing for me to be going to Vegas in a slightly better mindset, in the sense that, let's say, I'm not going to be completely and totally devastated if I don't win. Of course, I want to compete, but I'm actually competing for the love of competing now, you know, because, I might meet some people who are of the same mindset. Like, you know, I did a podcast with some of them there, and they also would have shared experiences as I say, I would have grown up as well. So, that's
kind of amazing, isn't it?
It's just nice to reach that point in life.
Yeah, but there's these people from around the world who you're competing against in this insane fitness challenge.
Yeah.
And you're sharing experiences with them, and you're finding like-mindedness, and
exactly.
I think that's kind of incredible.
It's lovely, like, you know, and what you see is as well, I suppose, from a let's say anthropology perspective, is the people that can tolerate that type of thing, and you'd be one of those two. You know, they tend to have shared experiences, like, you know, the ability to do an ultra marathon, like, is more about what's going on up here than anything else. And I always say that in the gym, you know, it's not about what you can do. Like, your muscles, for most people, are not the limiting factor. It's what goes on up in the head.
Yeah.
And like I always say, sometimes especially in Super League, it's been such a big part of my recovery, let's say, because it gave me such an outlet, like, you know, and it was perfectly timed, you know, because.
How do you find it?
Well, actually, there's a girl, Sue Farrell, who I would know from London, and she would have done bodybuilding as well. She contacted me and she asked me, let's say maybe in January. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I wouldn't be able to do that. You know, and then, you know, I don't know, whatever it was. Actually, I was in the hospital with. I was supposed to be doing Wim to Warrior.
Yeah. Remember you were going to do Wim to Warrior with John Kavanagh. Yeah.
So I had a cardiac event, and I was not able to do that. So.
You were gutted. You really wanted to do it.
I really wanted to do that. Yeah.
I can just imagine.
Maybe next time.
Well, the whole point of Wim to Warrior, for anybody who doesn't know, it's kind of like couch to cage. That's the kind of vibe behind it over 12 weeks, where everybody's at the same level and the same weight and stuff like that. So can I just imagine? Because there's always more guys than women, so I can just imagine these women looking at you coming in going, I'm not fighting her.
I would love that. Like.
Yeah.
And actually, I might go back to BJJ.
Yeah.
I think about that recently, yeah. But
I should go back to BJJ as well.
We
Turn
both
up
go
at
back
classes every once in a while. So we're recording this in August, but that's in September. That's middle of September, is it?
Middle of September, yep.
So people can follow you and see how you got on.
Yep.
And
actually, Super League is great because it is very interactive in that sense. Like, they do, you know, the live freaking Instagram. Like, I wouldn't be the best, like, ironically, with the technology, but they do even the qualifiers. They're all recorded live, so it is a very interactive thing. So to be able to follow.
So where can people watch it?
Superleague.live at superleague.live.
So can they physically can they watch it? Is there cameras?
Yeah, they do it as a live event. Like, even the qualifiers, they see some people obviously that live in Vegas, so they do the qualifiers there and they do it all live.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, so it's at superleague.live.
Superleague.live.
And hopefully, maybe from this, if we can get some more people in Ireland to do it.
Yeah, you think so? Do you know anybody that would be, like, because it seems like something that's elite stuff.
I think.
You know?
I think.
Yeah.
You should do
God, no.
I challenge you, Mike.
I'm you know, I'm really lazy. And
but you'd be so good at the conditioning element.
Do you know what?
You don't know till you try.
Oh yeah, I'm terrible at even running now. That's it. Like, I go up now and I spar in SPG and I'm gassing after.
Well, so let's just put this here. I challenge Mike to join the Super League.
I'm a total pussy. It's probably not going to happen.
We'll see.
And I say that now, but then it'll be in my head and I'll be like, what is the Super League? And I'll be just in bits.
Just plot the thought, you know.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on.
Me too.
I genuinely think you're incredible, and I think you're an inspiration.
Thank you, Mike.
And I think lots of people could look at you, and maybe not something to aspire to, but something to relate to, and something to come through the other side of. So
I hope so.
I know it's Dr. F. You were going to copyright that for a while. Dr. Fionnula. I was going to say thank you, Fionnula McHale.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
That was brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks.